Lord Father, many times in your word you said, knock and the door shall open. Seek and we will find. In this last day of session of the 19th Congress, we just ask for your mercy, grace, forgiveness. We are your servants. We also fail. Sometimes we succeed. We pray for the next Congress that they will succeed where we failed. We pray that we learn from our failures. But we pray, Lord, for the 12 who will not be with us, continue to use them in mighty ways in the different areas you're putting them. Lord, we pray that you will teach us how to act as one nation, even if we are divided because of politics. Help us to find common ground. Help us to know what is important and what is urgent. You told us to first seek your kingdom and your righteousness. So as we seek to build your nation, please use everyone here, our staff, people who we consult with, the other chamber, the House of Representatives, the leaders of the Supreme Court, the leader of our country, President Marcos, our Vice President Sara Duterte. We ask, Lord God, that in the times of chaos, you will make your will clear and we stop asking that you be on our side and we start asking that we be on your side. Lift this up to you in Jesus' mighty name, and thank you, Lord Holy Spirit. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Senator Cayetano. Secretary, will please call the roll.
Roll call of members. The Honorable Senator Binay, Senator Cayetano Alan, Senator Cayetano Pia, Senator De La Rosa, Senator Ejercito, Senator Estrada, Senator Gatchalian, Senator Go, Senator Tiveros, Senator Lapid, Senator Legarda, Senator Marcos, Senator Padilla, Senator Pimentel, Senator Po, Senator Revilla, Senator Tolentino, Senator Tulfo, Senator Villanueva, Senator Villar Cynthia, Senator Villar Mark, Senator Zubiri, the Senate President.
With 23 senators present, Chair declares the presence of a quorum. Majority Floor Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, before we proceed with the business of the day, Mr. President, I'd like to acknowledge several guests of the Senate today. We have the newly elected Mayor of Tagaytay City, my nephew, Mayor Brent Tolentino, who is here. Congressman Brian Revilla, Congressman Lani Revilla, Attorney Ina Del Rosario, Ambassador, guest of Senator Zubiri, Ambassador Tuason, Special Envoy Martin Tuason, Mr. Alaric Topacio of AFAD, and Mr. Alex Hornady. Guest of Senator J.B. Ejercito, the local government officials of Pagsanghan, Laguna, led by Mayor E.R. Ejercito, our good friend, and Vice Mayor Anuario Garcia, local government officials of Calasiao, Pangasinan, led by Mayor Patrick Karamat, Board Member Sheena Onrubia, and Councilor Onrubia of Albay. Guest of Senator Joel Villanueva, Dr. Noel Reyes, Medical Chief of the National Center for Mental Health. May we ask for an orderly proceedings, Mr. President?
Chair would like to remind the guests in the gallery to kindly maintain order within the chamber. Chair likewise instructs the Sergeant-at-Arms to kindly implement the Chair's order for silence.
Thank you, Mr. President. Guest of Senator Grace Po, Congressman Brian Po, together with the other family members of Senator Grace Po. Guest of Senator Risa Ontiveros, Tindig, Pilipinas, led by former Secretary Teresita Quinto Deles, Dr. Silvia Estrada Claudio. We acknowledge the guests, Mr. President.
To the aforementioned guests, welcome to your Senate. Majority Floor Leader.
Mr. President, I move that we dispense with the reading of the journals of the 53rd session, Wednesday, June 4, 2025, the 54th session, Monday, June 9, 2025, and the 55th session, Tuesday, June 10, 2025, and consider the same as approved.
Any objection? Hearing none, motion is approved.
Mr. President, I move that we proceed with the reference of business.
Any objection? Hearing none, Secretary is directed to comply.
Messages from the House. Letter from the House informing the Senate that on 4 June 2025, it passed the following House bills in which it requests the concurrence of the Senate. House Number 11372, strengthening the mechanism for land use development and infrastructure planning and budgeting for SUCs, amending RA 11396, and House Number 11376, providing for 200 pesos daily wage increase for minimum wage workers in the private sector.
The Committee on Rules.
Letter from the House informing the Senate that on 4 June 2025, it designated Representatives Nograles, Mendoza, Revilla III, Go, and Brosas as conferees to the Conference Committee on the disagreeing provisions of House Number 11376, providing for a 200 pesos daily wage increase, and Senate Number 2534, providing for a 100 peso daily minimum wage increase and for employees and workers in the private sector.
The Committee on Rules.
Letter from the House informing the Senate that on June 9 and 10, 2025, it passed the following House bills in which it requests the concurrence of the Senate. House Number 11421, strengthening the protection of the Las Piñas Parañaque Wetland Park. House Number 10987, prohibiting all forms of offshore gaming operations in the country. House Number 11358, providing for comprehensive fiscal autonomy for the Judiciary. 11461, providing for the establishment of Muslim cemeteries in cities and municipalities with significant number of Muslim population. 11539, amending RA 10591, otherwise known as the Comprehensive Firearms and Ammunition Regulation Act, and House Number 11543, institutionalizing the Lifelong Learning Development Framework, broadening the mandate of the Philippine Qualifications Framework National Coordinating Council, amending RA number 10968, and appropriating funds therefore. Rules.
To the Committee on Rules.
Letter from the House informing the Senate that on 10 June 2025, it designated Representatives Ferrer, Macapagal Arroyo, Asidre, Zamora, and Gutierrez as conferees to the Conference Committee on the disagreeing provisions of House Number 11358, providing for a comprehensive fiscal autonomy for the Judiciary, and House Senate Number 2982, defining the scope and extent of the fiscal autonomy of the judicial branch of government and for other purposes.
The Committee on Rules. Majority Floor Leader.
Mr. President, before we proceed with the other parts of our business for the day, Mr. President, we'd like to acknowledge likewise some personalities present in the gallery. Special envoy to the United Arab Emirates, Katrina Yu Pimentel, was with us. Ms. Jola Yu. We welcome their presence, acknowledge their presence, Mr.
Welcome to your Senate.
Mr. President, before we proceed with the other items in our agenda today, this representation would like to explain further. Just a one-liner, Mr. President, relative to my vote after the impeachment proceedings, Mr. President, yesterday. Kahapon po, pinaliwanag ko yung qualified vote ko tungkol doon sa carryover. Ulitin ko po, Mr. President, there is no provision contained in the 1987 Constitution stating the words carryover. And if the Constitution is silent about the carryover, that silence is not an invitation to presume otherwise. When the law is silent, we do not invent voices. We read the structure. We respect the design. Mr. President, I will be submitting an expanded, to save time, Mr. President, and to insert into the records, an expanded expositio ampla, Mr. President, to be part of the records of these proceedings, Mr. President.
Noted and entered into the records.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President.
What is the pleasure of the Minority Floor Leader?
I think the majority leader wants to revive the debates of yesterday, Mr. President. I will have to add that the Constitution also does not carry the words reset or back to zero. So at any rate, I'm just teasing
Can
the
we
majority
leave it
leader.
at that? Can we leave it at that, please? Majority Floor Leader.
Yes, I thought the minority leader would be asking as to the meaning of expositio ampla. It means an expanded explanation, Mr. President, in Latin, Mr. President. Mr. President, we are in receipt of the report, the Conference Committee report on the disagreeing provisions of Senate Bill number 2982 and House Bill 11358, the bills on the Judiciary, Fiscal, Autonomy Act. With that, I move to recognize the chairperson of the Senate panel, Senator Aquilino Pimentel, to give the highlights of the Conference Committee report.
Insert na lang, Coco.
So move, Mr. President.
Any objection? Hearing none. Consideration of the aforementioned bicameral conference committee report on the disagreeing provisions of Senate Bill number 2982 and House Bill number 11358 is now in order. Our minority leader and chairman of the Committee on
Yes.
Justice is hereby recognized.
Let
You
me
may
just-
proceed, sir.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. Let me mention the topic. This is the Judiciary Fiscal Autonomy Act, and my request is that we insert into the records the joint what do you call it? We insert into the records the bicameral conference committee report which harmonizes the disagreeing provisions of Senate Bill number 2982 and House Bill number 11358 upon its ratification by the body. But just additional information, we just cleaned up the bill, Mr. President. We deleted some redundancy in the bill, Mr. President. So thank you. That's all, Mr. President.
Majority Floor Leader.
Mr. President, there is a motion here for the approval and ratification of the Conference Committee report on the disagreeing provisions of Senate Bill number 2982 and House Bill 11358. And let the text of the explanation be deemed spread into the records of this chamber. So move, Mr. President.
Any objection? Hearing none, the Conference Committee report on the disagreeing provisions of Senate Bill number 2982 and House Bill number 11358 is hereby approved and ratified. Congratulations. Majority Leader.
Mr. President, we are in receipt of the Conference Committee report on the disagreeing provisions of Senate Bill number 2821 and House Bill number 6571 on the Accelerated and Reform Right-of-Way Act. With that, I move to recognize the chairperson of the Senate panel, Senator Mark Villar, to give highlights of the Conference Committee report. And so move, Mr. President.
Consideration of the Conference Committee report is hereby is now in order, and the honorable sponsor and chairman of the sponsoring committee, Senator Villar, is recognized. You may proceed, sir.
Mr. President, dear colleagues, good afternoon to all of you. I rise to manifest my support for Senate Resolution number 1376. Oh, wait. Sorry. Sorry. Mr. President, again, take two. Mr. President, my dear colleagues and guests of Senate, good afternoon to all of you. I would like to express my full gratitude to my dear colleagues for supporting the passage of this measure. I would like to also give thanks and kudos to the agency's resource persons, Senate Secretariat, and senatorial staff who offered their time, knowledge, and expertise. Mr. President, personal ko po naranasan ang mga problema sa right-of-way acquisition bilang dating secretary ng Department of Public Works and Highways. It was a recurring problem for infra projects which eventually caused delays in its accomplishment, resulting in economic costs to the government. During my tenure, we had to issue multiple department orders to facilitate efficient processes of right-of-way acquisitions for various high-impact infrastructure projects. Our fellow Filipinos are also affected with these issues as we failed to deliver infrastructure projects timely, projects that could have been utilized for the efficiency of their day-to-day lives. Marami pong projects ang hindi natapos sa target date dahil sa hindi maresolba na delays sa right-of-way. Moreover, compensation issues with private property owners also occur during the inefficient right-of-way process. Given these issues, we are glad to have the current Right-of-Way Act amended. The Arrow introduced important changes to the current law in order to make it responsive to the dynamic changes in the infrastructure landscape. It will expedite the process of right-of-way acquisition and provide just compensation to private property owners, thereby striking a balance between the implementing agencies and the property owners. Before I end, I would like to thank our dear colleagues who contributed to the crafting of this bill, our Senate President, Chis Escudero, who actively lobbied for the bill, and Senator Bong Revilla for his co-sponsorship of ARO. I would also like to thank our counterpart from the House of Representatives, led by Congressman Romeo Momo Jr., for their support and contribution to this bill. Mr. President, after having met and fully discussed the matter in a conference with the permission of the body, I move that the joint explanatory statement of the disagreeing provisions of Senate Bill number 2821 and House Bill number 6571 be read in toto into the record and the bicameral conference committee report be ratified. Thank you very much.
President, there is a motion here coming from Senator Villar as to Senate Bill number 2821 and House Bill number 6571. Mr. President.
Is there any objection to the motion? Hearing none, the conference committee report on the disagreeing provisions of Senate Bill number 2821 and House Bill number 6571 is hereby approved and ratified. Congratulations to the authors. Majority Leader.
Mr. President, out of respect to our dear colleague from Las Piñas, Mr. President, we are in receipt of a third reading copy of House Bill number 11421, entitled An Act Strengthening the Protection of the Las Piñas Parañaque Wetland Park, including the establishment of its buffer zone and appropriating funds therefore. In accordance with the communication from the Senate Chairperson of the Committee on Environment, Natural Resources, and Climate Change, I move to adopt House Bill number 11421 as an amendment to Senate Bill number 1536, entitled An Act Strengthening the Protection of the Las Piñas Parañaque Wetland Park, including the establishment of its buffer zone and appropriating funds therefore. I so move, Mr. President.
There is a motion to adopt House Bill number 11421 as an amendment to Senate Bill number 1536. Any objection? Hearing none, motion is approved. House Bill number 11421 is hereby adopted. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Unless the Honorable Senator Cynthia Villar would like to make a... Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, we have received a communication from the House of Representatives that House Bill number 11539, entitled An Act Amending Republic Act number 10591, as amended, otherwise known as the Comprehensive Firearms and Ammunition Regulation Act, was passed on third reading yesterday, June 10, 2025. Given that the aforementioned House Bill is identical to Senate Bill number 2895, which was approved by the Senate on third reading last January 27, 2025, and with the consent of the body, I move that the Secretariat be instructed to move forward with the enrollment of the subject measure. I so move, Mr. President.
Is there any objection to the motion? Hearing none, the motion is approved. Secretary is directed to comply with the same. Majority Floor Leader.
Mr. President,
Congratulations to Senator Zubiri.
Thank you, sir. And Senator Bato.
And Senator Bato de la Rosa. Majority Floor Leader.
Mr. President, we are in receipt of the Conference Committee report on the disagreeing votes of House Bill number 10535, entitled An Act Amending Sections 134 and 168 of Republic Act number 8424, otherwise known as the National Internal Revenue Code of 1997, as amended. With that, I move to recognize Senator Sherwin Gatchalian, the chairman of the Senate panel, to give the highlights of the conference committee report. I so move, Mr. President.
Any objection to the motion? Hearing none, Senator Gatchalian is recognized to sponsor the bicameral conference committee report. You may proceed, sir.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, as the lead conferee of the Senate panel, I have the honor of submitting for ratification a copy of the bicameral conference committee report on the disagreeing provisions of Senate Bill number of Senate Committee Report number 581 and House Bill number 10535, which amends sections 134 and 168 of the National Internal Revenue Code. The Senate and the House panels have met and thoroughly deliberated to reconcile our respective versions of the bill. Through this measure, we address two long-standing gaps in the tax treatment of regulatory process for denatured ethyl alcohol, gaps that have placed an unnecessary burden on the manufacturers and led to underutilization of valuable industrial alcohol. Under existing law, imported ethyl alcohol, even if intended for industrial use, cannot be denatured in the country and is therefore subject to excise tax. This has discouraged importers and compounders, compounded supply chain inefficiencies. This bill removes that restriction. Once imported ethyl alcohol is denatured in the Philippines, it will be treated the same way as its locally produced counterpart, exempted from excise tax. Sa madaling salita, nagkakaroon na ng patas na pagtrato ang lokal at imported na ethyl alcohol basta't i-denature dito sa bansa. This bill also authorizes compounders with rectifying facilities, not just domestic distillers, to perform the denaturing process. These compounders often deal with off-spec or surplus alcohol. By giving them the authority to denature, we prevent waste and allow them to transform these materials into usable products, such as disinfectants, personal care items, and industrial goods that promote health, hygiene, and productivity. Mr. President, this bill supports critical sectors by reducing production costs and expanding access to industrial alcohol, all while preserving government oversight over its processing and taxation. Safeguards are firmly in place. The denaturing process shall be done in accordance with the rules and regulations of the Bureau of Internal Revenue, including approved denaturant formulations. The BIR will also require confirmatory testing prior to removal of the denatured alcohol and will assign representatives to monitor the actual denaturing process. To my fellow conferees, Senate Minority Leader Coco Pimentel, Senator Nancy Binay, Senator Pia Cayetano, and Senator J. Versito, thank you for your invaluable contributions during the pre-bicameral and bicameral conference meeting as we resolved several issues. I also thank Senate Minority Leader Coco Pimentel for his invaluable insights during the period of interpellation. Mr. President, the comprehensive details of the disagreeing provision are reflected in the joint explanatory statement. With the permission of the body, I move that the joint explanatory statement on the disagreeing provisions on Senate Committee Report 581 and House Bill number 10535 be read in toto into the record, and the bicameral conference committee report be ratified. Thank you, Mr. President, esteemed colleagues.
Thank you, Senator Gatchalian. Any objection? Hearing none, motion is hereby approved. The conference committee report on the disagreeing provisions of House Bill number 10535 is hereby approved and ratified. Majority Floor Leader.
Mr. President, we are in receipt of the conference committee report on the disagreeing provisions of Senate Bill number 2826 and House Bill number 8937. These are the bills on the enhanced fiscal regime for large-scale metallic mining. With that, I move to recognize Senator Joseph Victor Ejercito, the chairman of the Senate panel, to give the highlights of the conference committee report. I so move, Mr. President.
Any objection? Hearing none, motion is approved. Senator Ejercito is recognized. You may proceed, sir.
Good afternoon, Mr. President, esteemed colleagues in the Senate. I have the honor of submitting for ratification the bicameral conference committee report on the disagreeing provisions of Senate Bill number 2826 and House Bill number 8937, or the Enhanced Fiscal Regime for Large-Scale Metallic Mining Act. The Senate panel is composed of this humble representation: Senate President Chis Escudero, Senator Mark Villar, Senator Alan Peter Cayetano, and Senator Aquilino Pimentel III. Mr. President, as the chairperson of the Senate panel, allow me to report the provisions of the present reconciled bill accompanying our conference committee report. The committee adopted the Senate version of the bill as the working draft. Under the reconciled version, the conferees agreed to levy a 5% royalty based on gross output of mines operating within the mineral reservation and a 5-tier royalty rates ranging from 1% to 5% based on margin from metallic mining operations for those outside mineral reservations. We also wish to highlight the new concept of windfall profit tax, which is the additional tax whenever the margins hit 30% to allow the government to capture a larger share of profits when metal prices are high and mining companies earn more income. There is also a provision that restricts steel capitalization by setting a maximum debt-to-equity ratio for the tax deductibility of interest expense. The reconciled bill also strengthened the mechanism for transparency and accountability in the extractive industry. Finally, for our local government units, we included a provision for the immediate release of LGU's share of excise tax, royalties, and other taxes and fees. With these reforms, Mr. President, we are optimistic that this will contribute an additional 6 billion worth of revenues for the government. Ginoong Pangulo, kinikilala natin ang potensyal ng mining industry na makatulong na palawigin ang ating ekonomiya. Tiniyak nating balansehin ang mga karapatan at interes ng iba't ibang sektor ng lipunan. Nais ko lamang pong bigyan diin ang probisyon na tingin ko ay nakatulong sana sa pagtaguyod ng mga trabaho at pagyayabong ng industriya sa ating bansa. The Senate version approved the provision of a 5-year moratorium on exports of locally extracted minerals. This proposal would have served as the framework to revitalize local industry, stimulate economic growth, create higher quality employment opportunities, promote value-added processing, expand our domestic and supplier network, and develop robust chains and enhance linkages across sectors, among others. The provision may not have been adopted by the Bicameral Conference Committee, but this may be something for future Congresses to visit. Mr. President, medyo nalungkot po ako. Sa tingin ko, ito'y magiging game changer sana sa ating po mining industry. Pero hindi pa ho tayo nagtatapos. Ilalaban pa ho natin ito sa mga susunod na Kongreso. To the end, this representation would like to thank this august chamber for extending their valuable support to the passage of this measure from the committee hearings to our plenary deliberations. Mr. President, with the permission of the body, I move that the joint explanatory statement on the disagreeing provisions of Senate Bill number 2826 and House Bill number 8937 be read in toto into the record and that the Bicameral Conference Committee report be ratified.
Before acting on the motion of Senator Ejercito, Chair would like to recognize Senator Zubiri.
Thank you.
What is the pleasure of the Honorable Zubiri?
Thank you, Senate President. May I just ask the sponsor if we could just clarify the provision of the initial law that we passed here in the Senate, if it was carried, which was the export ban of rare earth minerals?
The Chair can answer.
Okay,
That was
yes.
removed from the version of the bill.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to find that out. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Zubiri. Senator Villanueva.
Yes, Mr. President. May I just manifest, Mr. President, shortly in reaction to the report given by our head contingent of the Senate?
The gentleman may proceed.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. President. Mr. President, let me put into the records that this representation strongly register its opposition to the deletion of the 5-year ban on mining that was included, Mr. President, in the third reading version of this bill. Mr. President, I feel that its removal shifts our policy from precaution to profit, and puts our fragile ecosystems at risk. Mr. President, we work hard for this very important landmark legislation headed by Senator J.V. Ejercito. I remember interpellating him and debating with him on how we can improve this measure. Mr. President, yes, we are rich in copper. Yes, we are rich in nickel and cobalt, key minerals for clean energy. But if we keep exporting raw ore through direct shipping, we gain little and lose much. Mr. President, Indonesia already banned nickel exports to encourage local processing. And we feel, I think the entire Senate feels that we should do the same. Nakakalungkot, Ginoong Pangulo, parang sinasabi na doon sa kabilang bahay, ang number one kailangan proteksyonan muna yung mga mining companies nila, hindi yung taong bayan at ang sambayan ng Pilipino na nangangailangan ng trabaho. Mr. President, in the 18th Congress, we have filed this bill to maximize the benefits from mineral resources, and we will refile it next Congress and move to restore this ban. Gaya ng sabi ng ating chairperson na nanguna ng ating BICAM conference, tuloy pa rin ang laban natin para sa makatao at makakalikasang pagmimina. Maraming salamat, Ginoong Pangulo.
Thank you, Senator Villanueva. Majority Floor, what is the pleasure of the Honorable Ontiveros?
May I explain my no vote, Mr. President?
The lady may proceed to the bicameral conference committee report.
Yes, Mr. President.
We have not yet acted on the motion. You can make a manifestation in lieu of an explanation of vote in relation to the pending motion. The lady may proceed.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good sponsor, Mr. President. Bago po ako buboto, nagpapasalamat ako na tinanggap ang panukala kong pagbabago sa seksyon ukol sa transparency and accountability. Malaking bagay kung isa sa batas ito sa kabila ng makailang ulit na kabiguan, magkaroon ng Freedom of Information Law sa ating bansa. Nagpapasalamat din ako na kasama sa mga datos na isa sa publiko ang mga magiging epekto ng pagmimina sa ating mga natural capital na tinatakda ng RA 11995 o PENCAS Law. Gayunpaman, ikinalulungkot ko na hindi na isama ang dalawa kong rekomendasyon. Una, ang pagdagdag sa royalty na nauukol sa mga katutubo kapalit ng pahintulot nila na magmina sa lupang ninuno o ancestral domain. Isinulong ko na gawing sahig o floor ang 2%, subalit ginawang ceiling o bubong ito para sa mga makukuha ng mga katutubong nagmamay-ari sa lupang ninuno. Tinatayang 790 million pesos ang royalty na natanggap ng mga katutubo noong 2023. 1% lamang ito sa halaga ng mineral na nilalabas sa kanilang mga ancestral domain. Maliit na halaga na, nababawasan pa dahil binubuwisan ng gobyerno ng income tax ang royalties na tinatanggap ng mga katutubo. Pangalawa, ang panukalang export tax. Tinutulak ko ito hindi lamang sa karagdagang buwis, subalit dahil sa kinakailangang pananalapi upang mapondohan ang isang National Industrialization Program na aking sinusulong sa Alternative Minerals Management Bill. At pangatlo, totoong meron nakukuhang royalty ang Mines and Geosciences Bureau, ngunit ito'y limitado lamang sa mga mineral reservations. Binababaan pa mula sa 5% at ngayon 3% na lamang sa BICAM version. Malaking bahagi nito'y masasabing reimbursement o bayad lamang para sa nagastos na ng pamahalaan sa pagtuklas ng mga mineral. Sa mga kadahilanang ito, Mr. President and good sponsor, ikanululungkot ko na boboto akong no sa mining fiscal tax regime bill. Salamat, Mr.
Noted
President.
and entered into the records. Majority Floor Leader.
Mr. President, we are in receipt.
We have not yet acted on the motion.
Yes, I'm sorry,
Okay.
Mr. President. Mr. President, there is a move here to ratify the disagreeing provisions, the conference committee report on the disagreeing provisions of the Mining Act, and let the text of the joint explanation be deemed spread into the records of the chamber. So move, Mr. President.
Any objection? Hearing none, motion is approved. The conference committee report on the disagreeing provisions of Senate Bill number 2826 and House Bill number 8937 is hereby approved and ratified. Majority Floor Leader.
Mr. President, we are in receipt of the conference committee report on the disagreeing provisions of Senate Bill number 2899 and House Bill number 9293, the bills on the landmark Philippine Nuclear Energy Safety Act. With that, I move to recognize the chairman of the Senate panel, Senator Alan Peter Cayetano, to give us the highlights of the conference committee report. I so move, Mr. President.
Any objection? Hearing none, motion is approved. Senator Cayetano is recognized. You may proceed, sir.
Thank you, Mr. President. First, Mr. President, salamat sa Panginoon. Pangalawa po, sa lahat ng ating mga colleagues. Special mention po kay Senator Win, Senator Pia, dun sa mga areas na tungkol sa energy, sa PhilAtom. Special mention po kay Senator Risa Antiveros, Senator Lauren Legarda, the minority leader when it comes to protecting the environment, safety, security. Having said that, Mr. President, malinaw ang objective ng bill na to, ihiwalay ang ahensya na nagpro-promote ng atomic at nuclear energy at ang ahensya na magre-regulate. And when I say atomic energy, this includes for medical purposes, agriculture, etc. Having said that, Mr. President, let me take this opportunity in behalf of the whole Committee on Science Technology to thank first and foremost our Majority Leader, who is supposed to chair that committee but allowed me to take over. To thank Senator Mig Subiri for the enhanced Philippine Science High School Act. Thank Senator Pia for the virology, creating that very important aspect, taking note of that very important aspect that we neglected before the pandemic. And may I also thank the House of Representatives and everyone here, yung e-governance law, yung Konektadong Pinoy, together with PhilAtom, I feel with the virology and the Philippine High School will be game changers in the years to come. So may I ask, Mr. President, that yung joint explanation be part of the record, and I hope that the implementations of this act will give honor to the hard work of the different authors and technical. Let me also thank the consultants who gave us the technical and scientific knowledge to pass all of these laws. Thank you, Mr. President.
Majority Floor Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to thank again Senator Alan Peter Cayetano for the passage of the Philippine Nuclear Energy Act and for accepting our proposal to have the notion of modular nuclear plants, Mr. President. Mr. President, mamaya po ay...
We have not yet acted on the motion.
Mr. President, Senator Alan Peter Cayetano likewise intimated to me that Congressman Mark Cojuangco really did the spade work for this. Ang tagal po niyang pinagtrabahuhan ito at araw-araw kinukulit po ako, hindi ko na naintindihan. So we acknowledge likewise the work done by Congressman Mark Cojuangco. Mr. President, I move that we approve and ratify the conference committee report on the disagreeing provisions of Senate Bill number 2899 and House Bill 9293, and let the text of the joint explanation be deemed spread into the records of the chamber. I so move, Mr. President.
Any objection? Hearing none, the conference committee report on the disagreeing provisions of Senate Bill number 2899 and House Bill number 9293 is hereby approved and ratified. Congratulations to the authors. Majority Floor Leader.
Mr. President, before we proceed with the short manifestation of Senator J.V. Ejercito as well as the privileged speech of Senator Pia Cayetano, later on, Mr. President, I I will be sponsoring a resolution extolling the leadership of our good Senate President. Subalit ang magbabasa na po noon ay si Senator J.B. Ejercito. So allow me to state for the record that with Senator Ejercito reading the sponsorship speech, this does not in any way diminish the deep respect and high regard I hold for the distinguished gentleman at the helm of this chamber. As the ancients would say, virtus in arduis. Virtue shines in times of difficulty. Truly, the Senate President has led us with both steadiness and strength through such times. Mamaya po, yung speech ko, si Senator J.B. na ang magbabasa. Pinatikim ko lang po kayo noon, Mr. President. Mr. President, I move that we recognize Senator J.B. Ejercito for a short manifestation.
Thank you, nevertheless, Majority Floor Leader. The Honorable Ejercito is recognized. You may proceed, sir.
Good afternoon, Mr. President, dear colleagues. This is just a short manifestation. It has come to our attention that there was an approved motion from our counterparts from the House of Representatives withdrawing from their adoption of Senate Bill number 2838 as amendment to House Bill number 6557. This is the Magna Carta for barangay health workers. For the record, Mr. President, and for the information of all our beloved BHWs, we would like to express our sadness and disappointment with this current development. All along, we were expecting that this bill, which aims to acknowledge and recognize the hard work and dedication of our unsung heroes, was just at the doorsteps of Malacanang, waiting to be signed into law. Sa kasamaang palad po sa pagbawi na makasama natin mula sa House of Representatives ng kanilang acceptance ng Senate version, ito ay mistulang hakbang paatras para sa tuluyang pagsasabatas ng panukalang nating ito. Mr. President, matagal na pong inaantay ito ng ating barangay health workers, whom I consider one of the most overworked yet undercompensated. Sila po ang ating talagang frontliners at nakita natin ang kanila pong dedikasyon, ang kanila pong serbisyo, lalo na noong panahon ng pandemya. Umulan man o umaraw, kinakagat pa ng aso at tinahabol pa. Ang ating BHWs ay nandyan para magtrabaho upang pangalagaan ang ating kalusugan. To all our BHWs, our frontliners during the pandemic, our force multipliers for the implementation of the universal health care, your Senate has always been aware, sensitive, and concerned of your struggles. We remain firm in believing that the Magna Carta for BHW should be passed into law to justly compensate your service to our people. Sa bahagi po ng Senado, ginawa po namin ang aming tungkulin. Ngunit makakaasa po kayo na patuloy kami nakasuporta sa lahat ng ating barangay health workers. Maghihintay kami sa susunod na mga hakbang na maaaring gawin ng House of Representatives para umusad ang panukalang ito na handog natin sa ating mga bayaning BHWs. Maraming salamat po, Ginoong Pangulo.
What is the pleasure of the Honorable Zubiri?
Mr. President, I would just like to second the manifestation of Senator J.V. Ejercito.
The gentleman may proceed.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Mr. President, I am disheartened, I'm saddened by the idea that the House of Representatives withdrew their support of such an important measure for our BHWs, barangay health workers. At least we put it on record that the Senate stood up to the challenge in helping our BHWs. We did our best, Mr. President. You did your best. We did our best. And it's just unfortunate that they had to withdraw the adoption of the measure, which will put the nail on the coffin of this measure for the 19th Congress. So we just like to put that on record, including, not to mention our minimum wage bill, Mr. President, that you and I have been fighting for from the very beginning. They continuously insist on the 200 peso minimum wage. We all know that the businessmen, the small and medium enterprises cannot afford such a large sum, and they insist on that amount when we are 100 pesos a day per minimum wage earner increase. So that puts us in a bind, and now it does not move forward. It is the last day today before we adjourn on CNG. We'd like to inform all the workers, laborers, minimum wage earners that the Senate did its best to fight for the rights and, of course, the fiscal incentive of having another 100 pesos a day minimum wage increase in their salary. Naawa po ako sa kanila. Again, I'm also disheartened with the fact that they don't want to negotiate with us. Obviously, if we adopt the 200 peso minimum wage bill, mavivito ni Presidente yan. Definitely that will be vetoed. And if that will be vetoed, we torpedo the measure, and it looks bad on everyone. So, Mr. President, I just want to put that on record, that the Senate has stood up and fought for these sectors. Unfortunately, our friends in the House have not been very accommodating on this issue. So I just want to vent out my sadness on these particular two topics. And I thank the Senate President and our colleagues for fighting side by side with us in pushing for these social justice measures. Maraming salamat po, Mr. President.
May I know the status of the bill?
As member of the BICAM, the sponsor is here. I believe that they don't want to discuss anything unless we adopt the 200 pesos per day, which we all know the businessman cannot afford.
Yeah, please.
Mr. President, just to report out to the body, Mr. President, if you recall, we passed this measure more than a year ago, and that we were able to get the official third reading measure passed by the House of Representatives less than 48 hours before we will actually adjourn. And yesterday, Mr. President, we have talked to some members of the conferees. And in fact, last night, together with the Senate President, they were saying that they are amenable to the Senate version, to adopting the Senate version. And so we thought that it's going to happen, but unfortunately, even this morning, I got some calls from the members of the media asking me to react on the letter sent by this representation yesterday morning appealing that our version be adopted. But today, apparently, there was a letter circulating, and I would say, I have to say that this is not an official letter because I have not received any letter from the chairperson of the Senate, House of Reps Committee on Labor chairperson, that they will continue to push for their own version. However, Mr. President, a lot of labor groups, including the wage boards, etc., are calling our counterparts in the House to adopt the Senate version, which they all support. So let me just put that on record. Hope springs eternal. We still have time. If they would adopt today the version of the Senate, then we would be very happy to report it out to our workers who deserve nothing but more, Mr. President, when it comes to getting their salaries. Thank you very much,
Thank
Mr.
you,
President.
Senator Joel, for enlightening this August chamber with regard to the legislated wage hike. Senator Pia Cayetano.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would simply like to join our colleague, Senator J.V. Ejercito, in his manifestation regarding his dismay and disappointment on the what transpired and what the fate of the Magna Carta for Barangay Health Workers bill is. That's all.
Thank you. The manifestation of Senator Pia Cayetano is hereby noted. Majority Leader.
Mr. President, likewise, this representation associates himself with the disgust expressed by the Honorable Zubiri relative to the BHW law as well as the minimum wage law increase. The last legislated wage act was more than 3 decades, Mr. President. So napaka sakit po sa mga umaasa na mga manggagawa natin sa barangay, lalong-lalo na yung mga nagtrabaho nga ng COVID-19 at sa ating mga manggagawa ngayon na hindi natupad ang kanilang mga pangarap.
The manifestation of the majority leader is hereby noted.
Mr. President, the Honorable Senator Pia Cayetano would like to deliver a privileged speech. I move that she be recognized.
Senator Pia Cayetano is recognized to avail of the privilege hour.
Mr. President, I rise today on a matter of personal and collective privilege. June is National No Smoking Month under Presidential Proclamation number 183, and May 31 was World No Tobacco Day. In light of this and the ongoing global and national efforts to curb tobacco and vape use, the following report is all the more timely and warranted. As chairperson of the Senate Committee on Accountability of Public Officers and Investigations, known as the Blue Ribbon Committee, I will be submitting my chairman's report, and its executive summary is here, which I have personally distributed to the members of this body. Regarding the inquiry in aid of legislation on the privileged speech of this representation entitled, "For the Fifth Time, the Philippine Gets the Dirty Ashtray Award" on February 14, 2024. This report includes an inquiry into the Philippine delegation's conduct during the Conference of the Parties, the COP10 negotiations, which drew criticism for delaying the proceedings, echoing tobacco industry arguments, and failing to uphold the country's commitments to global health standards. In 2005, the Philippines signed and ratified the World Health Organization Framework Convention on Tobacco Control. This is the WHO FCTC. During the WFCTC COP10, held from 5 to 10 February 2024 in Panama City, the Republic of Panama, the Philippines received a Dirty Ashtray Award. The Dirty Ashtray Award, a notorious dishonor, was conferred upon the Philippines for the brazen use of tobacco industry tactics to dispute and delay consensus. It was reported, among others, that the Philippines sent a 34-person delegation to COP10, the largest from any government. This unusually large number remarkably outnumbered the delegation of some more populous countries, such as China and Russia. After conducting several hearings, I now present our key findings and recommendations. First, the Philippines delegation received the notorious Dirty Ashtray Award at the WFCT conference for actions seen as favoring the tobacco industry by, among others, delaying the agenda and pushing the so-called balanced policy narrative. In reality, the balanced policy has been weaponized to serve industry interests, guised as concern for farmers, in direct conflict with our obligations under our current law and the WHO FCTC. Second, the Department of Trade and Industry appears to have exceeded its authority when it issued the DTI Vape Law Supplemental Rules, which effectively delayed the implementation of key provisions of the Vape Law. We recommend further investigation to determine whether this constitutes a usurpation of legislative powers. Third, the vape industry was directed to register their products and remove non-compliant products from the market. The period to comply was continuously extended by the DTI by granting the vape industry undue leeway through this extended market clearing period. From 5 June 2024 to 7 September 2024, the DTI may have committed corrupt practices under the Anti-Graft and Corrupt Practices Act. We therefore recommend the filing of appropriate charges against the responsible officials. Fourth, we raise concerns over the Philippine delegation to COP10, which may be considered a misuse of public funds. We recommend that the Commission on Audit conduct a special audit of all expenses, whether public or private, related to this trip. Fifth, the committee affirms the need to reestablish DOH leadership in future FCTC negotiations. Sixth, the DOH should lead. Sixth, we raise serious constitutional concerns with the vape law itself. It may violate the principle of pacta sunt servanda, our duty to honor international commitments. The committee recommends urgent amendments to RA 11900, return regulatory authority over vapes and HTPs to the FDA, raise the minimum age of access from 18 to 21, and strengthen the provision on restriction of flavors to plain tobacco and menthol only. Finally, it must be emphasized that this hearing took place at a time when, tragically, the first documented death from e-cigarette or vape-associated lung injury, EVALI, was recorded in the Philippines. This case mirrors global evidence, including a 2019 U.S. Center for Disease Control and Prevention report of over 2,800 EVALI hospitalizations and 68 deaths. We cannot ignore that the first related death in the Philippines, that this is a sobering reminder of what happens when regulation and public health protection fail. And this may not be the only case. Others could remain hidden due to weak surveillance and lack of accountability. Dear colleagues, this is how the tobacco industry operates. They prioritize profit over public health. The industry is slimy. They repeatedly use delaying tactics and exploited regulatory loopholes to advance its interests at the expense of public health. The previous Congress undermined progress made on tobacco and vape control by removing the protective measures under the sin tax law. The passage of the vape law not only overturned important provisions under our sin tax law, but it also opened the floodgates for more Filipinos, especially our youth, to use these harmful products and practically encourage such practice in the guise of regulation. We owe it to the next generation to guard them against an industry that seeks to profit at the expense of their health and safety. Sa Kongreso pong ito, ilang beses akong tumayo para ipahayag sa inyo ang kalokohan ng tobacco industry. Lubos kong ikinagagalak na marami sa inyo ang nagpakita ng suporta sa kagustuhan ko na mapigilan natin ang industriya na sirain ang kalusugan ng ating mamamayan. I hope that you will join me in the filing of bills in the next Congress to hold this industry accountable and firmly put them in its place. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator Pia Cayetano, for that passionate speech. Before that, Senator Alan, Peter Cayetano.
Mr. President, just a manifestation. May I be allowed, Majority Leader? Mr. President, 3 topics, 1 manifestation, mabilis lang. First, may I associate myself with the topic of Senator Pia. Despite losing votes in the 2022 election, I really campaigned also on the issue of vape and e-cigs. Much study is needed, but delikado po talaga. If you go to Hong Kong and Singapore, it's a criminal offense. Sa atin, parang in-encourage pa natin na lumaki yung industriya dito. Number 2, may I congratulate everyone, including, of course, Senator Risa dun sa anti-POGO. Nung pinayagan po ang POGO, matagal na to, pero nung lumaki, last administration, ang sinasabi, hindi naman Pilipino ang tumataya. Ang problema po, binagbawal na natin POGO, lumalaki naman po ngayon ang industriya ng online na mga Pilipino ang tumataya. So I hope the next Congress can look into this. It's not as addictive as e-sabong, but it will get there because gaming is addictive. Using the internet is addictive. If you put the two together, you can do that kind of gambling anywhere, anytime. Napakadelikado para sa atin. So I want to honor those who warned us against POGO 15, 20 years ago, whatever it was called, pero we only acted upon it now. So sana po we act on the online gaming soon in the 20th Congress. Lastly, Mr. President, may I also request that request that the partial report or preliminary report doon po sa tulay na nahulog po na bumaksak sa Isabela. We did a few hearings, hindi pa natapos, but there are glaring loopholes, if I may call that, or lapses. And I did not expect that in my lifetime we would investigate a bridge that collapsed. Nasanay na tayo ng defective yung anti-flooding, kaya bumabaha. Nasanay na tayo na medyo yung kalye, bagong gawa, ina-aspalto na, di ba? Sanay tayo na merong iba na medyo ghost. Pero for a bridge worth 700, 800 million, then increase to more than 1 billion, then bumaksak, we really have to, kailangan talaga itong tutukan. So preliminary lang tong report na to, but whoever heads the Blue Ribbon Committee in next Congress. I hope that susundan to. And I think those sa DPWH who are giving this serious thought. Nung umpisa kasi parang bumagsak. Wala yung outrage eh. No? So anyway, Mr. President, kung walang objection, I hope we can include the preliminary report in our records just to guide the next committee chair and members in the next Congress. Thank you very much, Mr. Presiding Officer. Thank you, Majority Leader.
Thank you, Senator Alan Peter Cayetano, Majority Leader.
Mr. President, I move that we consider proposed Senate Resolution number 1376.
Is there an objection? The chair hears none. The motion is approved. Consideration of proposed Senate Resolution number 1376 is now in order. With the permission of the body, the Secretary will read only the title of the resolution without prejudice to the insertion of its full text into the record. Session suspended. Secretary?
Resolution expressing the sincere appreciation of the Senate of the Philippines to the Honorable Senator Cynthia A. Villar for her distinguished public service and excellent performance during her tenure as Senator.
Majority Leader?
Mr. President, I move that we adopt proposed Senate Resolution number 1376.
Any objection? Chair hears none. Proposed Senate Resolution number 1376 is hereby adopted.
Mr. President, may we ask our Mama Bear, Senator Cynthia Villar, for response.
May we hear from Senator Cynthia Villar if there is any response?
Mr. Senate President, esteemed colleagues, dear friends, and fellow Filipinos, 12 years ago, I entered the halls of the Senate with a clear intention to serve with integrity and use the knowledge I had to make a difference, especially to uplift the lives of those who need it most. Ang nais ko pong magamit ang aking karanasan upang mapataas ang kalidad ng buhay ng ating mga kababayan, lalo na ang ating mga magsasaka na siyang nagpapakain sa atin, ngunit madalas ay nananatiling kulang sa tulong at oportunidad. I'm honored to have been entrusted with the duties of Chairperson of the Senate Committee on Agriculture and Food and Agrarian Reform, and later of the Committee on Environment, Natural Resources, and Climate Change, roles that allowed me to work on areas where policies could create real and lasting impact for the Filipino people. As Chairperson of the Agriculture Committee, I focus on legislation that could directly support farmers, fisherfolks, and rural producers. These are some of the key laws I passed. RA 10654, which prevents illegal, unreported, and unregulated fishing. RA 10659, the Sugarcane Industry Development Act. RA 10816, the Farm Tourism Development Act. RA 10817, Halal Export Development and Promotion Act. RA 10845, Anti-Agricultural Smuggling Act of 2016, which was strengthened by RA 12022, the Anti-Agricultural Sabotage Act of 2024. RA 10969, the Free Irrigation Service Act. RA 11203, the Rice Tarification Law as enhanced by RA 12078. It established the annual Rice Competitiveness and Enhancement Fund to provide rice farmers with high-quality seeds, modern farm equipment, accessible credit, and capacity building programs. RA 11511 enhances the Organic Agriculture Act and introduced the participatory guarantee system for smallholder certification. RA 11524, the Coconut Farmers and Industry Trust Fund Act, which from the recovered cocoa levy funds to farmers via programs and support. RA 11547 declares Davao City as the chocolate capital and Region 11 as the cacao capital of the Philippines. RA 11700 declares Catanduanes as the abaca capital of the Philippines. RA 11707 declares San Jose, Batangas as the egg basket of the Philippines. RA 11901 expands rural and agricultural financing through the Agriculture, Fisheries, and Rural Development Financing Enhancement Act. RA 1953, New Agrarian Emancipation Act, which condoned 57 billion in unpaid amortization of 600,000 agrarian reform beneficiaries. RA 11985, the Philippine Salt Industry Development Act, and over 50 laws establishing 63 fish hatcheries nationwide to boost aquaculture and local food production. As chairperson of the Committee on and later now we just passed the livestock bill to enable the livestock farmers to recover from the ASF. As chairperson of the Committee on Environment, Natural Resources, and Climate Change, I pursued the legislative action to protect the country's rich biodiversity and promote sustainable use of natural resources. RA 11038, the expanded National Integrated Protected Area System, INAIPAS Act of 2018, which declared 94 new legislated protected areas across the country, such as forests, watershed, marine ecosystems, to ensure their long-term conservation and proper management. Ito po ay dati ay 13 lang. Kaya no ipasa ko yung 97, naging 107. 10 lang dati. Nung ipasa ko yung 94, naging 107. Dagdag po rito, we have passed additional specific protected area laws, RA 11684, the Mount Arayat, RA 11685, Mount Pulag, RA 11686, Naga Kabansalan Protected Landscape, RA 11687, the Tirad Pass, RA 11688, the Banao Protected Area, RA 11806, the Tukbo Natural Biotic Area, and RA 11933, Shikogon Island White Sanctuary Act, which turned the 194 plus 13, 107 to 114, and now 120, additional 7, 124. We have also championed the passage of the Extended Producer Responsibility Act of 2022, which institutionalizes accountability in the use of plastic packaging by requiring producers to recover their plastic waste. This law encourages us to change now how we view waste, to repurpose instead of simply discard, and to see used materials as part of a circular economy. I hope this becomes a precedent not just for plastic, but for other forms of waste like electronic waste, bulk waste, hazardous material. Responsibility ng gumawa ayusin ang iniwang basura. During the unprecedented COVID-19 pandemic, this August chamber quickly adapted. I was proud to be part of the institution that helped our nation respond and recover. We passed the Bayanihan laws, funded emergency subsidies, and supported our health system, all while keeping essential food systems running. Throughout my term, I had the privilege of working with 5 Senate presidents, namely Senators Drilon, Pimentel, Tito Soto, Mig Subiri, and Chis Escudero. Thank you for your leadership and guidance. To my fellow senators, thank you for your friendship, collaboration, and many meaningful moments we shared in service. I was fortunate to have worked with you all. Allow me to mention your names in alphabetical order. Sani Angara, Bam Aquino, Nancy Binay, Alan Peter Cayetano, Pia Cayetano, Laila de Lima, the late Miriam Defensor Santiago, Bato de la Rosa, Franklin Driron, J.V. Ejercito, Francis Escudero, Jingoy Estrada, Win Gatchalian, Richard Gordon, Bongo, T.G. Gingona, Gringo Honasan, Risa Hontiveros, Ping Lacson, Lito Lapid, Lauren Ligarda, our President Ferdinand Bongbong Marcos Jr., Amy Marcos, Manny Pacquiao, Robin Padilla, Kiko Pangilinan, Coco Pimentel, Grace Po, Ralph Recto, Bong Revilla, Tito Soto, Serios Mena III, Francis Tolentino, Rafi Tulpo, Sunny Trillanes de Fort, Joel Villanueva, and Mark Villar. Nasabi ko na. To the Senate Secretariat and our entire support family from OSAA, to the elevator attendants who welcome us with their smiles, to the administrative committee and technical staff who assist us in every hearing and plenary session and in managing the respective senators' offices. Maraming salamat sa inyong tahimik pero mahalagang papel sa ating araw-araw na trabaho. Hindi magiging maayos at makabuluhan ang aming paglilingkod kung wala ang inyong sipag, tiyaga, and professionalism. To my staff and team, thank you for standing by me every step of the way. To the incoming and remaining senators, we live in complex time. Fake news and malicious narrative now easily damage reputations and erode public trust. And while some say this is all part of the job, it should not be. Let us remain anchored on the truth. Let us rise above the noise. Let us protect not just ourselves, but the very institution we serve. In this chamber, you fondly call me Mama Bear, a simple moniker, but one I took to heart. To be Mama Bear meant being fiercely protective, genuinely caring, and always dependable. I saw it as a gesture of trust and respect and a reminder to always show up, give my best, and look out for those around me. My term may be ending, but my commitment to public service remains. Hindi po natatapos ang paglilingkod sa pagtatapos ng termino. Sa halip ito ay simula ng panibagong paraan na makabuluhang ambag sa bayan. Salamat, Panginoon, sa biyaya ng pagkakataong makapaglingkod. Salamat sa aking mga kasamahan, sa mga kawani ng Senado, pati na rin ang iba't ibang sangay ng gobyerno na nakatrabaho at nakasalamuhan natin. At higit sa lahat, sa ating mga kababayan, sa kanilang tiwala at patuloy na inspiration. Maraming salamat.
Maraming salamat.
Mahal ka namin.
Session suspended.
Mr. President, I move that we consider proposed Senate Resolution number 1375.
Any objection? Hearing none, motion is approved. Secretary is directed to comply.
Resolution commending the Honorable Senator Grace L. Po for her distinguished public service, outstanding performance, and invaluable contributions to the Senate and the Filipino people during her term as Senator.
Majority Floor Leader.
Mr. President, I move that we adopt proposed Senate Resolution number 1375.
Session is... Any objection? Hearing none, motion is approved. Senate Resolution number 1375 is hereby adopted. Majority Leader?
Yes, Mr. President, to give her response, I move that we recognize the amazing grace of the Senate, Senator Grace Po.
Senator Grace Po is recognized. You may proceed, ma'am.
Mr. President, esteemed colleagues, fellow public servants, and every Filipino I've had the privilege to serve, I rise with a full heart, a grateful spirit, and let's be honest, a bit of disbelief that 12 years have gone by so quickly. In 2013 and again in 2019, I was humbled to receive over 20 million votes each time. With that support came a quiet but persistent pressure to live up to FPJ's legacy and repay the trust that Filipinos gave me. Kaya naman sa loob ng 12 taon, I filed close to 700 measures and passed more than half of that, 368 laws to be exact. Pero hindi ito tungkol sa dami. These laws were meant to respond to the everyday needs of the Filipino people who place their trust in all of us. Today, I stand before you, not just as a lawmaker, but as your humble public servant who has learned that the real power of this office lies not in the title, but in the trust and dreams of the people we serve. Maraming salamat po sa tiwala ninyong lahat. Serving as your senator has been a humbling experience. There's nothing quite like being grilled in the plenary hall to remind me of what my mom, Susan Rosas, asked me when I first ran for public office. Sabi niya, pagbutihan mo at huwag mahihiyang magtanong. But truly, this job has kept me grounded, sometimes by gravity of the issues and occasionally by the weight of the paperwork. Whether by design or more often by sheer luck or lack thereof, I somehow always found myself right in the middle of tough investigations, like the Mama Sapano massacre, MRT3 problems, the NAIA glitch, the PUV modernization, and the wild world of ride-hailing apps and motorcycle taxis. At one point, I felt less like a senator and more like the Senate's designated crisis hotline operator. I am proud to have championed causes close to my heart, and I hope to yours. Indeed, I consider it the greatest blessing of my life to have witnessed, if not contributed, to the birth of several landmark laws. We fought for every Filipino child's right to a healthy start in life, where millions of mothers and their infants were provided with checkups and vitamins in the first 1,000 days law. With the masustansyang pagkain para sa Batang Pilipino Act, or more popularly known as the National Child Feeding Law, we made sure that no child goes to school on an empty stomach because math is hard enough without hunger pangs. Ngayon, mahigit 3 milyong mag-aaral sa public schools at DSW daycare centers ang nabibigyan ng hot meals o mainit na pagkain taon-taon. Wala na sigurong mas personal sa akin kundi ang pagpasa ng mga batas para mapadali ang proseso ng pag-aampon sa ilalim ng Simulated Birth Rectification Act at Domestic Administrative Adoption Act. Thank you again, Senator Risa. Under the Foundling Recognition and Protection Act, deserted and abandoned children are not just recognized as Filipinos, but guaranteed full rights and protections under this law. This was not just policy work for me. In many ways, it was healing. Hindi lang mga bata ang kailangan ng aruga, hanggang sa pagtanda. Ako ay kaagapay ninyo sa increase in Social Pension for Indigent Senior Citizens Act. Dinoble natin ang pension ng mga senior citizens na indigent, may karamdaman at walang income o suporta ng pamilya. Bawat pensyon na 1,000 para sa mga lolo't lola, parang I love you galing sa gobyerno. Hindi lang sa buhay, pati sa huling goodbye, may libreng tulong na. Sa Free Funeral Services Act na pinasa natin nito lang, libre na ang burol para sa mga indigent para hindi na kailangan pang mangutang habang nagluluksa. One of my first laws as senator was the Free Mobile Disaster Alerts Act. Filipinos receive accurate and reliable information in their mobile phones before and when disaster strikes. Simple man ang batas, pero maraming buhay ngayon ang naliligtas tuwing may bagyo o kalamidad. We leave behind laws that have not only responded to unprecedented times, but also paved the way to a more resilient and robust future. The amendments to the 86-year-old Public Service Act allowed more players to invest in sectors like telecommunications and transportation while still safeguarding national security and interests. New internet service providers like SpaceX are now making inroads in the Philippines because of the Public Service Act. Ngayon, pwede na magkaroon ng mga hearing ang mga nasa tawi-tawi at ang ating mga Supreme Court justices ay sila mismo ang dumidinig dahil nga dito sa mga serbisyo ng mga telecommunications. The Konektadong Pinoy Act will supplement this in bridging the digital divide. I'm also honored to be part of paving the way for projects like the NAIA Rehabilitation, the New Manila International Airport, and the Bulacan Eco Zone, where progress isn't just a buzzword, but a reality that is already on its way. We've also made inroads in making the country a more walkable and bikeable place, thanks to the provisions we introduced in the Bayanihan laws, which we sustained in subsequent budgets. With measures like the Financial Institutions Strategic Transfer Act and the amendments to the Anti-Money Laundering Act, we made sure that our financial system is in check. Kahit papano nabubuko yung mga nagtatago ng pera katulad nung sa POGO hearings. Kailangan lang natin i-fund pa sila ng mas mabuti para lumawak ang kanilang supervision. Laws like the Anti-Financial Account Scamming Act, AFASA, and the SIM Registration Act now act as our shields against scammers. Nitong nakaraang taon lang, may 3.6 billion spam messages at 3.3 million na SIMs na ginagamit sa krimen at napa-decommission natin sa mga telcos. Sa ngalan naman ng serbisyo publiko, humigit kumulang 143 franchises ang ating naaprubahan simula 2016 mula major broadcast companies tulad ng GMA, TV5, Manila Broadcasting Company at Signal TV. Sayang, hindi umabot ng ABS-CBN. Religious broadcasters gaya ng Iglesia ni Cristo at CBCP, tatlong major telco players na Smart, Globe at Dito, water providers na Maynilad at Manila Water, power distributors tulad ng More Power at Negros Electric, pati na ang mga airlines gaya ng Skyjet at Air Philippines. Iba-ibang sektor para akong nangolekta ng diploma ng engineering sa kuryente at tubig, masters in ICT, pilot license, pati divinity. Para maiwasan ang buong araw ng pila sa mga transport offices, we also push for the creation and upgrade of 65 LTO offices, 3 LTFRB, and 3 Marina offices nationwide since 2016 para hindi na masyadong malayo ang biyahe ng ating mga kababayan para lamang kumuha ng lisensya at iba pang mga permits. Maliit na bagay pero malaking ginhawa para sa nagre-renew ng lisensya at nagre-rehistro ng kanilang mga sasakyan. We also tackled red tape with longer passport and driver's license validity. Since its implementation, our passports are now valid for 10 years, while more than 10 million individuals have benefited from extended validity of driver's licenses. 10 years din. Ang buhay ngayon ng Pilipino, hindi na puro pila, puro biyahe. I won't bore you with a long list. After all, 12 years is a long time, and I've given you a long list already. The Senate President so generously gave me this time to say my goodbyes. But in that time, I'm proud to have worked on thousands of measures, survived endless hours of hearings, and collaborated with so many brilliant experts who made the journey worthwhile. The laws I mentioned earlier are just a small sample of what we accomplished together. So instead of a laundry list, let me just say it's been quite a ride. There are a few measures in the pipeline, bills we're hoping to pass in the 19th Congress, like the Revised Animal Welfare Act, but I leave that to all of you because I know a lot of you are animal lovers. Having had the privilege and occasional headache of chairing committees from finance, economic affairs to public services, banks, public information, and public order, I've learned that keeping your cool is just as vital as keeping your facts straight, especially during marathon hearings that last so long, our Mondays turn into Tuesdays and so on. My sincerest thanks to all the resource persons who braved the hot seat, survived the grilling, and somehow managed to keep us awake, maging ito man ay gulat o galit, or galit. To all government agencies who I have called upon during my hearings who are now marked safe. As I exit the Senate, I leave with no regrets. Of course, none of this would have been possible without the support of my colleagues, especially the able sponsors of the law I've mentioned, Senators Mark Villar, Senator Risa, several bills, in fact, and that are laws, Senator Bam Aquino, Senator Amy Marcos, Senator Alan Cayetano. Our hardworking Senate staff and Secretariat, Committee Secretariat, and the Filipino people who never failed to remind me sometimes loudly on social media of what truly matters. Thank you for keeping me honest, keeping me humble, and keeping me on my toes, and sometimes awake at night. To my fellow senators from past and present, and those incoming as well, the Senate is a chamber where only the prepared, not necessarily the popular, endure. I have it in your hands and your conscience. Every moment in these halls has been a teachable moment, and I can only hope that I have returned the same to each of you. Please permit me a final roll call. To my fellow graduating senators, my classmate since 2013, Senator Nancy Binay, Coco Pimentel, and also Senator Francis Tolentino, Bong Revilla, and also another classmate since 2013, Senator Villar. Congratulations. After years of debates, interpellations, and endless sessions, we can finally rest, or at least pretend we will. Alam ko si Nancy hindi, kasi babalik sa Makati. You've left your mark on this chamber and on me. To Senator Nancy, whose family history with mine is colorful, but whose friendship has never been black or white. Your sharp wit and radiant smile will surely brighten Makati City Hall. Senator Nancy, even if she's seemingly quiet, has the most insightful grasp of issues and has all the inside information. To the minority leader par excellence, Senator Coco Pimentel, who gave me the book that I will always cherish on 2004. Magkasama tayo since 2004. Insistent, unyielding, a true son of his father. My dad really admired your father, who valued being right, over being popular. Thank you, sir. To the Majority Leader whose legal mind defended our seas with unwavering resolve, Senator Tol, I pray for your return. Senator Bong Revilla danced into the hearts of many and repaid that trust with meaningful bills in his third term, including bills for teachers and allowances for teachers, and always has a kind heart, who always helps those who are struggling in their campaign. I know you helped me in 2013. Thank you, Sen Bong. We await your return in the Senate. To the Villars, Mama Bear Cynthia, who has shown quiet bear Mark the ropes. Mark's defense of the Maharlika bill was strong, and we look forward to Senator Camille's arrival. Thank you, Senator Cynthia, for helping us pass in the Senate the animal welfare bill. Thank you. Actually, talagang malaking tulong ito at pinagbigyan talaga ako ni Senator Cynthia. Sabi ko, last minute request. And dahil sanay na kahit hindi pa napapasa ang animal welfare bill sa House, nalagyan na niya ng funding sa susunod na bill ng livestock. Pero merong animal welfare category doon. Senator Mark, thank you also for your kindness always. To Senator, now Secretary Sani Angara, even if you're not exactly here in the chamber now, thank you for leading us as your steadfast chairperson of the Finance Committee, proving you can handle big numbers and bigger challenges. Now, as DepEd Secretary, we're counting on you to balance the classroom chaos with the same steady hand. And to the senators who will continue serving in the 20th Congress, congratulations. You get to work nonstop all over again. But seriously, your dedication has been the backbone of this Senate. And I am excited to see you carry the torch forward. Thank you, Senator Win, for ably steering hearings and personally attending TWGs. Ikaw ang pinakamasipag na staff ng Senado. We might as well rename the committee Ways and Win. Talagang laging handa, may notebook palagi. Thank you, Senator Joel, for your energizing brews, your jokes, your stories, and for standing with me when it truly counted. I am relieved that you are still here to champion important causes that are dear to my heart, like the welfare of our PUV drivers. For I know that someone as passionate and dedicated as you will continue to fight for always upholding the interest of the Senate as an institution. To the formidable Cayetano duo, Alan and Pia, few Senate twosomes are as formidable as you. Your incisive interpellations taught me much, and I